In Detroit, Michigan, during the early 1990s, an audacious gang blurred the lines between law enforcement and crime. A heavily armed gang was terrorizing neighborhoods, targeting drug dealers and innocent civilians. They executed more than 100 violent home invasions. So, who were these invaders? How did they execute their operation with such precision? What was driving their violent spree? These questions would soon lead the police into one of the most shocking investigations of the decade. In the early 1990s, Detroit was a city plagued by violent crime, particularly drug trafficking and gang-related violence. Amidst this chaos, a gang emerged with a chilling tactic. Their strategy was to impersonate law enforcement officers, complete with police uniforms, body armor, and heavy weapons. They would conduct violent home invasions targeting drug dealers, rival gang members, and unsuspecting citizens. The gang's foolproof disguise made it nearly impossible for their victims to tell the difference between them and actual police officers, causing their victims to comply accordingly. Over time, their attacks escalated, drawing the attention of both the Detroit Police Department and the FBI. The Special Task Force was formed to dismantle the criminal organization that had terrorized the city. Finally, a key breakthrough came when one of the gang members, Dante Garrison, was wounded during a home invasion. So they agreed to cooperate with law enforcement and provide important information about the gang's operations, structure, and leaders. This cooperation would ultimately lead to the gang's unraveling. The story of this violent gang began in 1994 when they started targeting drug dealers and rival gangs in Detroit's most dangerous neighborhoods. Their methods are well organized and calculated. They were armed with high-powered weapons and dressed in SWAT-style police uniforms with police emblazoned across their body armor. These meticulous details made it easy for their victims, including drug dealers and civilians, to mistake them for real officers. The gang used intimidation to overpower their victims, often threatening them with physical violence to gain information or to loot. One of the most shocking incidents occurred in February 1994, when the gang raided a house in the neighborhood known for its drug trade. Masked and armed, the gang barged into the home, shouting commands and ordering the occupants to the floor. The family members, believing they were facing legitimate police officers, complied. When one man hesitated to reveal the hidden cash, the gang fired a warning shot near his head, showing just how far they were willing to go. They ransacked the house, took the money, and fled without leaving a trace of their identities. The incident was similar to over 50 cases reported within a few months. Moreover, the gang was involved in shootings, violence, and sexual assault. As similar incidents began to reappear, the FBI and local authorities began to see a pattern. They noticed the use of police uniforms and military-grade strategies. Yet, despite numerous raids, the gang's true identity remained hidden. At first, law enforcement thought these home invasions were the work of common criminals, but they quickly realized that something more sinister was at play. Reports from victims consistently mentioned men in police uniforms carrying heavy weapons. It raised suspicions that these criminals might have military or law enforcement backgrounds. Many of the victims were drug dealers, reluctant to talk, fearing arrest for their activities. Officers assured them, "We don't care about the drugs. We're here to stop these violent criminals." Slowly, more information began to trickle in. Investigators began looking into the possibility that former or current officers were involved in the gang. However, their search yielded no major leads. Corrupt officers usually avoided drawing attention. They focused on financial gain rather than exerting violence, which made it difficult for the task force to build a concrete profile. July 26, 1994 came a breakthrough in the investigation when police responded to a shootout, finding a man named Dante Garrison severely wounded. Dante had been part of a raid gone wrong. The gang had been ambushed by their victims, a group of drug dealers. Dante was found by the police and left for dead on the streets. He was wearing police gear and clutching a gun and was rushed to the hospital. His survival was a stroke of luck for the investigators. This presented the task force with an opportunity to gain critical information about the gang, which had evaded capture for months. Dante's family had a connection to Officer Al Page. This provided an opportunity to persuade Dante to cooperate. Al Page, understanding the importance of this breakthrough, visited Dante in the hospital. Al was able to convince him to turn on his gang and provide inside information in exchange for full immunity. After some negotiation, Dante agreed to this. Once Dante agreed to cooperate, he was taken to a secure FBI safe house to ensure his safety, as the gang would stop at nothing to silence him. During intense questioning, Dante revealed shocking details about the gang. The gang was much larger than investigators thought, consisting of 30 members divided into smaller teams of 4 to 8 individuals, each responsible for one raid. The leaders of the organization were O.B. Carter, a strategic mastermind, and Andre Woods, who was known for his sadistic methods. O.B. Carter was responsible for selecting targets, gathering information, and planning the raids. He would assign gang members to observe potential victims and ensure that each home invasion was executed without error. Andre Woods, on the other hand, was notorious for his violent behavior, especially towards women. His training sessions taught gang members how to breach doors, overpower victims, and operate like a police SWAT team. Dante's testimony was very valuable and allowed the task force to get wiretap warrants, despite the challenges of limited technology in 1994. Although cell phones weren't very common, investigators tapped into landlines and other channels to gain information. The wiretaps revealed critical details, like plans for the latest heists, but they still lacked hard evidence to arrest the gang. Meanwhile, Dante's confession led to a shocking incident. On September 4, 1994, Andre ran away, triggering a massive manhunt. This event urged the authorities to shift their focus to capturing O.B. Carter, the mastermind behind the whole operation. Investigators knew O.B. Carter was no ordinary man. He was always staying one step ahead of the authorities. Despite many surveillance efforts, police failed to track him down. The wiretaps revealed conversations between gang members about their criminal activities, but it wasn't enough to catch them in the act. And then a critical opportunity presented itself when officers discovered that a planned heist was going to happen on November 11, 1994, where the gang was targeting a drug dealer's home. While the exact location of the house remained unknown, surveillance teams were prepared to act. The task force devised a plan to capture the gang. With backup from the SWAT team, the operation involved 20 officers hidden inside an ambulance, waiting to catch the gang after they completed their raid. The SWAT team's goal was to circle the gang's van as it left the scene, stopping them from escaping. However, things took a different turn when the gang's driver sensed something was wrong and sped away. This resulted in a high-speed chase. This chase led to a dangerous shootout, exactly what the task force had tried to avoid. The van sped through the streets, but law enforcement vehicles continued to pursue them. Then the gang opened the van's rear doors and began firing at the officers. The chase continued until the van suddenly stopped in the middle of the street. Officers surrounded the vehicle and 4 gang members jumped from the van, firing as they ran away. Officer Steve Miller instinctively chased after them. Meanwhile, SWAT officers stayed near the van, arresting 2 gang members. In this chaos, Officer Miller shot one of the gang members who was running away, while the remaining ones were caught. The operation revealed critical evidence, including weapons, stolen goods, and even police uniforms and armor. The captured gang members now began cooperating with authorities, providing more details about their operations. In the end, 29 gang members were arrested and convicted. They received long prison sentences. Fortunately, despite the violence, the high-speed chase, and the shootout, no officers were injured. The gang that was once feared now crumbled under the weight of law enforcement. In the end, persistent investigation and Dante's cooperation led to the end of the violent gang that terrorized Detroit. In the aftermath, Detroit breathed a huge sigh of relief. The gang that had spread terror across the city was no more. Justice had prevailed. The dismantling of this ruthless organization was a reminder that even the most cunning criminals could not escape the law. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to Breakout Bank for more videos.